Hello, Zelda Universe. Welcome back to a new interview with a fabulous voice actor from Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. My name is Trainer Trevino. I am joined by our guest today, where he is on my end on the recording. Hello. May you please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe Hernandez. You can hear me in Breath of the Wild as the voice of Daruk and Yunobo, and like you mentioned, you can also hear me in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity as well.
Very cool. Well, so before we get into all of our questions, I just want to say how does it feel to be back as the Goron champion in Age of Calamity?
It really was a dream come true. I mean, getting a chance to, bring the character to life the first go around was really just something so special and something so magical. It was kind of lightning in a bottle, so to speak. And you do it and you record and you do however many sessions it takes, and you finish and you wrap up, and that's it. And you go about and you go to the next gig, wherever it may be. And, and there are certain ones that stick with you longer than others, and certain ones that definitely resonate with fans and click with gamers. And Daruk was definitely that. When it comes to franchises and characters and things like that, nothing is ever a given. Nothing is ever, set in stone. And so at one point, I think they had announced like the Champions Ballad DLC, but nobody ever called me for the longest while. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, maybe they're bringing them back, but maybe they're not voicing the characters, or, who knows? And so you're just kind of just sitting there and kind of twiddling your thumbs. And then one day, all of a sudden, they say, hey, we want to bring you back for, the DLC stuff that goes on. I was like, oh, perfect. And it was great to sort of revisit the character back then. And, when I got the call for Hyrule Warriors and getting a chance to come back and revisit the character once more, it was just, it was so magic. It was so special. And getting a chance to do it in the way that we've done it in Hyrule Warriors, I'm even that much more proud of what we've done with the characters and the story and the exploration and the journey that all these characters go on.
That's great. And have you personally ever have you personally played Breath of the Wild or Age of Calamity yet?
I have played Breath of the Wild. So I have this really bad habit, and I've said this many, many times. I have this bad habit where I will start a game, I will not finish it. And so when Breath of the Wild came out, I bought it for the Wii U, and I played it for probably about 8 hours, and I made it pretty far in the game, and I made a lot of progression and, did pretty well. And then just life happens, and like for me, there's something that happens with most of my games, unless I finish it like just right then and there. Where so much time will pass, where it's almost impossible for me to go back and like start where I left off at, because so much time has passed, where it's like, oh gosh, I forgot how to play this game. And it wasn't just Breath of the Wild, it was Link's Awakening, the remaster that just came out last year. Hyrule Warriors, I haven't had a chance to really sink my teeth into. I just had a baby like 3 days ago, so my life is very much upside down. And I'm trying to figure out what normal is at this point right now.
I think we all are. and huge congrats on the baby too.
Thank you.
I know everyone's saying on Twitter like, "Oh, a baby Goron, how cute."
What's funny? All the baby Goron and call him Yunobo and all that stuff. I mean, really, the way his body is and everything, he is very Goron-esque. Like I myself, when you look at my physiology, I am very much like the same body type as Daruk. We share a lot of similarities. We're both big, brown, got giant bellies. Like there's not much of a stretch there between me and him. And so I'm looking at my son, and especially we have him in like the newborn diapers, and he's got this big, long torso. Oh. And I guess the same could be said for like a lot of like newborn babies. And he's got just these little tiny legs and these little tiny feet, and it is so Goron-esque. It's perfect.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm truly happy for you and the family. That's just great.
Thank you.
All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into a bunch of our fan questions.
Sure.
So our first question comes from Belle. She says, "Yay, Daruk, my fave." Joe, was there anything, celebrity, friend, family member, memory that inspired Daruk's voice personality for you?
I remember going in for my audition for Breath of the Wild, and again, I didn't know it was Breath of the Wild that I was auditioning for. Again, they were very kind of hush hush, and as is the case with most like big AAA titles, a lot of secrets. They're not even using the name of the game. It's a lot of code words and all that stuff. And Jamie Mortellaro, the director, he kind of described this character as bombastic and larger than life. And he kind of broke it down for me where he made me think of, Gimli from Lord of the Rings. Just this guy that's just sort of this larger than life presence. And originally, in the description and the breakdown, he wasn't described as being a Goron. And so again, I didn't have that sort of image to go off of, but Jamie created such a picture for me where I kind of pictured this sort of like barbarian, but a good barbarian, just this friendly, warm, loving guy. And, fortunately he liked what he saw, and the people at Nintendo liked what they heard. So, it worked. And, I think, Lord of the Rings was sort of the world, the universe that was pitched to me. So that was sort of what I was going off of in my interpretation when I went in for my auditions and kind of bringing the voice and bringing the character, all that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So next up, we have another question from D. Tyler Fultz. He says, "First of all, 3 cheers for Best Bro Daruk." Also, Joe, what would you say is the most fun part of voicing the Goron champ? What is the most difficult?
Wow, that's... I'm not trying to use it as a cop-out, because I would say all of it is a fun part. There really aren't too many like hard... Well, I shouldn't say that, because there are some difficulty. There are some parts where it is challenging. But for the most part, like, I'm in there and I'm having fun. I'm having so much fun, and it is a dream. It has been, an absolute just dream come true to be able to revisit this character over the years as much as I have, and I'm truly blessed. The challenging part, at least with Hyrule Warriors, is it's a little bit of a different format than Breath of the Wild was. Breath of the Wild, we had some cutscenes, we had some missions, and we still do that in Hyrule Warriors. But in this time, Daruk is a playable character, which is great because we get to play as Daruk, and he gets to attack and kick some butt, and that's really, really fun, and I'm looking forward to that. But the problem is now you're having to do attack sounds, and what does a light attack sound like? What does a medium attack sound like? What does a heavy attack sound like? What happens when you get hit really hard? What happens when you get even harder than that? So again, it's finding all that, which ordinarily as a voice actor, I think you're sort of prepared to do. But sometimes you're very bound to what goes on in the Japanese version. So sometimes, like, say, for example, the Japanese voice actor will deliver their line in a second and a half. Well, now me, Joe, I have to deliver that line in a second and a half. And so when you have a guy like Daruk, who's big and bolsterous and, kind of takes his time with his words, sometimes that can create a challenge because Daruk does a lot of things. Talk fast isn't necessarily one of them. So again, in certain respects, you're kind of threading the needle technically on what you are able to do. And so, making Daruk talk fast or talk within a certain time frame, a time window, but also make it believable. And that's where the challenge can sometimes lie. Yeah,
for sure. And our next question coming up is from Rebecca. She has 2 questions, actually, and they're really short. Her first question is, who would win in a fight, Daruk or Darunia?
Oh God. Oh man. We can't have any Goron on Goron Prime
Fighting going on.
fighting.
Yeah.
We Gorons got to stick together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make that a cop out, but hey, Gorons, life is hard for a Goron right now, and we don't need any Gorons fighting.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I do think though Darunia might beat Daruk in it. Yeah. But I do think Darunia might beat Daruk at a dance off.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I've seen Darunia's moves. I mean, he's got some sweet moves. Hey, I'll bow down. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then her follow-up question is, what's your favorite Zelda-related memory?
It was Ocarina of Time, and I must have been maybe about 13 years old. And one of the reasons why I love that game as much as I do was because up until that point, I have an older brother, and so me and my brother would share the NES, we'd share the SNES, and so he would dominate the game as older brothers do, or as far as the playing time was concerned. So between those systems, I never really got a chance to play as much as I would have liked on those systems, the games on those systems. When it came to the N64, my brother, like I said, he's about 7-8 years older than I am. So at that point in time, he was already moved out of the house. So I had the N64 all to myself. I could play it as much as I wanted. It was a beautiful thing. I didn't have to share. I didn't have to split time with my brother. That was it. It was wonderful. And I remember Ocarina of Time. And I distinctly remember going and meeting the Gorons for the first time. And I found them so fascinating. And I even remember like the music, the tune, and I fell in love with the characters then. And if you had told 13-year-old Joe that he would be playing a Goron champion, I never in a million years would believe it. Like it's so surreal. And the fact that memory is so distinct in my mind and so vivid after all of these years. And it's something that I revisited during the recording process. And it's just super surreal, where it's like, what am I doing? I can't believe that this is even happening, that I'm portraying a Goron in a Zelda game. Like, what? That's unreal. Like, it's just like, I never in a million years could I have imagined such a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with voice acting and Zelda being a freshly new thing for the franchise.
Yes.
Yeah. Is a huge opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's great. So our next question comes from Trav Plays Game. What kind of mindset do you get into for voicing Daruk? What kind of character do you become to deliver his voice?
Kind of like what we said with Gimli, where just this big, bolsterous, larger than life, bombastic guy, where he's just he comes in and he fills the room, and he has that laugh, that giant belly laugh, and he's obviously he's the biggest guy in the room, which I'm personally sort of used to. And again, there's just this fiercely loyal component to him. When it's time to fight, when it's time to do business, he will always be the first one in line. I mean, he's ready to fight for everybody that he loves, and but that being said, there's also this component about him where he's very warm and soft and loving. And I love that about him, that there's this sort of, as much as he's this like, I'm gonna kick some butt kind of a guy, there's also this gentle giant quality to him that I absolutely love and identify. And I love exploring both sides. And I think it rounds out the character so well. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
But speaking of Daruk as a character, Lisa is asking, is your personality similar to Daruk's, and are you always ready to roll?
I would say so. I might even go out on a limb and kind of speak for most of the cast. When you look at all of us, I think, in some degree, we represent our characters, or we have a certain part of our personality that lends itself into our characters, and that's kind of the case for most voice actors and the roles that they voice. You know, you kind of put a piece of yourself into that character, and these characters are definitely no exclusion to that. I would say there's a lot that I share with Daruk, and like I said, sort of credit to Jamie Mortellaro, the director, and Nintendo for sort of identifying those qualities and realizing that like they match up, and having these characters that are so fleshed out, and yeah, I there's a lot with Daruk that I identify with.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. And with that said, we have Island of Drummer asking, have you ever gotten overly emotional when recording? Also, what sort of music do you think Daruk would listen to?
Overly emotional? Yeah, there have been some moments. Some moments. Oh, gosh. I'm trying to remember what scenes, and there have been other projects that I've worked on where characters have died, or I'm dying. There was a, gosh, I was working on Mobius Final Fantasy, and that was it's a mobile Final Fantasy game that just sort of ended its run, I would say maybe about a year ago or so. And so up until that time, it was sort of like just an ongoing progression of a game where it's like there was constantly new updates and all that. And it's great getting a chance to sort of explore a character in an ongoing game like that. But once they announced the game was ending, you know, you kind of have to end parts of the storyline, which means that sometimes characters get killed off. So they didn't tell me that my character was dying when I went into the session, which was funny enough. It was also directed by Jamie Mortellaro. And he kind of found out at the same time that I did. And so the session itself sort of progressed where things were going really well for my character. Like, you know, we had a really good outlook, like things were starting to turn around, things were going great. Like, hey guys, we've got everything's coming up Millhouse. And you know, you have this boss fight, this battle, and you know, you have lots of boss fights and battles and all that stuff, and usually, you know, you win, and that's fine, and you move on to the next challenge or the next dungeon or the next you know, boss that you have to fight. But in this one, I died, and I like not knowing. Yeah, I think it definitely helped the performance, but I think just like Joe, the voice actor, was also a little like kind of jolted too. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, like here's this character that I had been working on for, you know, the better part of 2 years or so, and it's like, oh gosh, like I'm dying, and you have all these emotions that you're feeling, and you have to do the voice, and you have to do you know, you kind of you still have to do the session, so it's like, oh gosh, you know, like you know, how do you respond to that? So that was definitely one instance. Some of the stuff that we did on Breath of the Wild, especially like towards the end, particularly the Champions Ballad, you know, those last few scenes where everybody's gathering around to take the picture. That was the last thing that I recorded on the DLC. That was the very last scene. And to do that, and especially, like I said, you don't know if these characters are coming back. You don't know what's going on, if they're ever going to make a Hyrule Warriors or anything like that. So you just don't know. And so at that point in time, my thought was, oh gosh, this could very well be the last moment that I'm voicing Daruk. And it was such a beautiful moment where we are, you know, everybody, the champions are all coming together and they have that photo. And it was just a great, beautiful moment where everybody's personality kind of plays out, you know, in that little piece of time. And it was so beautiful, and you can't help but just have these warm feelings when you're doing something like that.
That's great. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And then, hey, y'all got to come back and reprise your roles for
exactly. So, you know, it works out.
Thank goodness the game did well, so we can get another one.
Yes.
Yeah. And all right, next up we have Red Bear asking, what is your favorite Daruk quote? And also, did you feel confident voicing Daruk again for Age of Calamity after 2 years voicing him in the Champions Ballad?
My favorite Daruk quote. Daruk's protection is now ready to roll. That's a popular one.
Yep.
Great job, little guy. I mean, those are just fun lines to have. And usually whenever I do like autographs or I'm personalizing something, like people will ask for usually those two lines, and it's so much fun. What was the other part of the question? Is there?
It's how do you did you feel confident voicing Daruk again for Age of Calamity after 2 years voicing the DLC Champions Ballad?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, this is a character that I that is very, very near and dear to my heart. So 2 years off, it's 2 years. That's a long time to go in between voicing a character. But that being said, I feel like a part of him sort of lives with me. And so I was able to kind of just tap into it. That being said, I also did go back before we started working on Hyrule Warriors, and I revisited a lot of the cutscenes, and I revisited a lot of what I did vocally to kind of just sort of tap into the inflections and the cadence and the delivery and everything, and kind of just get back into that sort of mindset. And hopefully you guys agreed, and hopefully you guys, the fans and everybody playing at home, would find that the transition from Breath to Champions Ballad to Hyrule Warriors was pretty seamless. I would hope.
Yeah. I think so.
That's kind of what we're ultimately shooting for,
Yeah. I mean, personally, I just think that like it just like gets better over time gradually. It just keeps going up.
And that's one of the beautiful things about a game like Hyrule Warriors is, like, especially now that Daruk is a playable character, you can play a little bit more. I mean, this game, and one of the things that I loved about working on it is it's so well written, and you get to explore so much more about these champions and of these characters that you didn't necessarily get a chance to see in the previous installments. So for me as a voice actor, and I would say most of the, Patricia and Elizabeth and everybody else probably love that, is getting a chance to discover new dimensions of these characters that we hadn't seen before. And that's always fun, getting a chance to do that.
Yeah, for sure. We have another question who's asking, what do you do to get into character, and do you have a favorite blooper or blunder when you're voicing Daruk?
A favorite blooper or blunder? Oh, what do I do to get in character? I don't know. I mean, I just, you kind of walk around like a Goron. You kind of physicalize it. You kind of get big and heavy. And I can tell you that, with the stuff that we did in Champions Ballad and even Age of Hyrule, I would sort of go back to the mentality that I had on the stuff that we did on Breath of the Wild. And I could always sort of hear Jamie's direction, because as much as what I worked on was a part of me, Jamie was right there sort of fanning that fire. And Jamie is so hands-on, and he's so involved, and he helped. I mean, he gave me the pushes in those areas that I needed to get this performance out. And so I will always sort of have his voice in the back of my head as far as try this or try that or try, and it's great when you're able to have someone like that is in your corner sort of cheering you on and pushing you to be the best Goron that you can possibly be,
For sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Did we ever come up with a favorite blooper or blunder?
A favorite blooper or blunder? Oh gosh. That's tough. So I wouldn't call it a blooper or a blunder, but I remember working on Hyrule Warriors, and this was kind of during COVID. and having to work from home, which most actors, I think, most voice actors are kind of used to at this point now. We all have our own, varying degrees of professional broadcast quality voiceover booths, and some are very high tech, some are very low tech, and for some of us, we're kind of just in the middle. One of the advantages of working in a bona fide voiceover studio versus working in a converted closet like what I have here is that there is air conditioning and there is air circulating in those professional studios. And so for me, working in here, there is no air circulating. It is hot. I mean, it gets real hot, real stuffy, real humid, real fast. And so working on this at certain points in time, I may or may not have had to have shed an article or two of clothing.
Okay.
And so not to give you all the juicy details or anything like that, but there were moments where it's like, I'm wearing probably about the same outfit that Daruk is wearing right now. Like I'm getting a little method on this. Like we kind of both have like our little cod piece, and that's about it. And that's how you roll. That's how you do it. That's how you get through everything.
That's how you roll.
Yeah.
I love getting into character. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So Dude Cole 110 is asking, would you say Daruk is more like a happy-go-lucky dad or more of an older brother to Link? I hope that question makes sense.
I'm going to split the difference and say kind of like a happy-go-lucky older brother.
Okay.
Because while Daruk is definitely sort of like that dad, he's very much that dad kind of a character. With Link, I wouldn't necessarily say that he's like that he embodies the dad character. His dynamic with Link is more of a big brother. And as we see in Age of Calamity, sometimes it's doing the right thing, and sometimes it's kind of getting into trouble or being a little mischievous or and not to spoil anything, but there are a couple of really good moments in there between Daruk and Link. So a little bit of both. And I'm not trying to use that as a cop-out, but there are times where it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
For sure. All right, let's see. Okay, we have a fun question here. It's from a Bomber Nation, and they're asking, have you ever tried eating rocks before? I think they taste great.
Oh gosh, no. Cool. Tried eating rocks. I've probably eaten a little bit of dirt as a child. Didn't really take to it that much, no. So I didn't graduate to rocks. If dirt wasn't going to do it for me, I doubt rocks would. So that's all I'll say about that.
That is totally fair. Janitor Ben's asking, how big of a role did you think it was when you first auditioned in terms of, I guess, Breath of the Wild?
No idea. I mean, absolutely had no idea. And I never in a million years could I have comprehended what this character would be in regards to his place in the story and with what goes on with Link and the entire video game as a whole. Never knew. I mean, you just, and nor should you. I mean, it's one of those things where you audition for a character and you're not necessarily, you shouldn't necessarily be thinking, is this a main character? Is this a supporting character? How many lines does he have? Like this and that. You should just be thinking, I want to do this character to the best of my ability. And like I said, major credit to the director, Jamie, and Nintendo for putting their support behind us and setting us up for as much success as possible so that we could be the best version of these characters that we could,
Right.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have about maybe like 3 more questions to go, and I think we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and get to Franco's question. He asks, what's it like to be back for him, Daruk, and how do you differentiate between the voice of Daruk and Yunobo?
Well, Daruk, like I said, we kind of touched upon it a little bit. Daruk is definitely sort of that big, bolsterous, larger than life dad slash older brother, if you want to split the difference, maybe call him like that cool uncle that will, let you stay up late at night and, eat lots of candy or, drink soda well past your bedtime and all that stuff. So he's kind of that guy. And so as long as you have that mentality, then you know that that's what the character is. With Yunobo, and again, the way that they sort of broke him down is that he is this very insecure, unsure of himself kind of teenager. And thinking back about my experiences in high school, that was something that I sort of tapped into with Yunobo, where again, not terrible. I mean, a little on the high-strung side, easily scarable, just not sure of yourself. The world is crashing down on you, and it certainly feels like that when you're 16, 17 years old. And so that was sort of what I tapped into in my mentality with Yunobo. And like I said, it's great to come back and explore these characters and kind of flesh them out a little bit more and explore aspects of the personality that we haven't seen before. And so I'm always, game for that. I'm always loving to do that. I'm always wanting to see where these characters go next. And I love it.
That's great. I have a question asked by two people, Heather and Herman. They're both asking, what's your favorite cutscene in Breath of the Wild?
I would say that moment where Daruk sees Yunobo.
Yes, that's a good one. Where
he's looking out over the entire kingdom, and he's, I'm wondering how Goron's fared after the calamity, and he just kind of has this moment to himself where it's like, I hope that my people, my race are still doing okay, and then he sees little Yunobo there, and it's such a big, profound moment for both characters, sort of equally, because like I said, Yunobo was very insecure, unsure of himself and all that. And, when you see someone like Daruk and you look up at them and it's like, oh my gosh, that's my hero, and my hero is acknowledging me and I'm helping out, and we're sharing this moment. It's such a beautiful little piece in time. How could you not love it? As far as the DLC for Champions Battle, that's tough, man, because that moment with Zelda, that little cutscene, especially with the dog, that was just, that was so much fun. And like I said, that end piece at the end of the DLC where we're all taking the photo, I mean, I love both of those scenes in the DLC pretty equally for different reasons. And then as we see in Hyrule Warriors, not to spoil anything, but there are some moments, especially with Link, there are some moments towards the end of the game, and I don't want to spoil it, but I'd like to think that if you've progressed that far, if you've seen the end of the game, if you should know. I'd like to think that it's there, and
yes,
yeah, there are some great moments in there.
For sure. All right, we got one last question here from Risky Gumilar. I'm going to butcher that name. They're asking, hello, I just want to hear your opinion. What makes Zelda games so beloved by millions of fans even after 35 years of the franchise? Still manage to stay relevant and to be on top.
What I think has made the fans endear so much to this franchise, especially like you said, after 35 years, it's wonderful storytelling. It's this fantasy element that people can kind of just get lost into. It's characters that you are invested in, and sometimes the characters will kind of change out. They'll kind of come and go. There are other characters that are definitely have been a fixture throughout the series that you love, and you love them all. And also the gameplay. I mean, when you look at the changes in platform from the NES, SNES, N64, Game Boy, everything. Each game has brought something new to it, and there's this constant innovation. Nintendo does not rest on their laurels when it comes to making a Zelda game. They are constantly going to be pushing the boundaries of what you can do. And so when you mix in all those factors as far as the music, the gameplay, the characters, you just cannot help but become entirely submerged into this world, especially when you have the lore and the history with a franchise as rich as this. I mean, it's tremendous.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's great. Yeah, I probably should say it's coming up 35 years starting next February. So
that's right. Yeah,
35 years. It's
35 years.
A lot.
Yeah.
And we're just thrilled to be able to like interact with like all of the voice actors, because like have you guys be a part of this franchise is fun, and to be able to celebrate that.
Like I said, it's surreal for me. You know, I grew up playing, you know, that first game on the NES. You know, I didn't get a chance to play a lot of it, or I didn't get a chance to play as much of it as I would have liked, but I played it, and I played Link to the Past, and I played, you know, the Game Boy version, Link's Awakening. So I was familiar, and I love this franchise, and so I am a fan. I am a fan, and so getting a chance to be a small piece of this larger franchise and of this giant, you know, universe and this world that exists, is not lost on me, man. And you know, when we're working on Breath, you know, there really hadn't been any voiceover introduced into the Zelda games. And so I would say that there was a lot of pressure that I put on myself. And I think Sean Shiplock would tell you the same thing, that it's we know what it means to people because we've lived it and we've played it ourselves. And you know, to their credit, it's not like Nintendo or Jamie Mortellaro were hounding us, because everybody wants you to succeed. The pressure that I was feeling was entirely 100% self-inflicted. Because like I said, I know the expectations that come with this franchise and each and every new installment that comes. And so you want to make it the best that it possibly can be. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's really what you work for.
Well said. Yeah, I totally agree there, for sure. And this is just perspective. I think with Breath of the Wild, DLC, and Age of Calamity, it's definitely gotten to a wonderful part of the franchise. Like it's gotten so much bigger, so much wonderful.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of the implementation of voice acting. It works so well when you put a lot of attention and care into it.
Yes.
And you can tell because you guys do that.
Yeah.
For sure. Alrighty, well, I think that'll go ahead and wrap up all of our questions today from all of our amazing Zelda fans in the world. So Joe, do you have anything for us? And do you want to like have any shout outs or any thoughts to the fans as well?
Thank you guys. Thank you for all the love that, you know, it's been a crazy week when you consider that, Age of Calamity released and I had a baby, you know, all within a 7-day span. It's been a lot going on for me. And, I appreciate all the love and support that everybody has reached out and sent on Twitter and just all the well wishes, all the love. It's been tremendous. So thank you for everybody that has reached out and showed their love and support.
Wonderful. Well, awesome. Well, Joe, where can they find you on the wonderful internet world?
If you want, hit me up on Twitter. My handle is at Joe Hernandez VO. It's the same on Instagram. I'll be honest with you, I'm a lot more active on Twitter than I am on Instagram. I do a little bit of stuff on there, but not as much as Twitter. So that is the place to find me.
Yeah, and we will have all of Joe's links in the description below, so go follow him on Insta and Twitter.
Yeah.
And hey, and you may see more pictures of Joe's baby on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, it's my Twitter is going to be this like weird mesh of like Zelda stuff, baby stuff, and I'll throw in some wrestling stuff because I'm a big wrestling fan too. So
Yeah.
it's just going to be this weird little hodgepodge of all these different worlds coming together.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Joe. Thank you again for hanging out with us this morning.
Of course.
And being here. Just like, thank you for all that you do for your role and being part of the Zelda universe, quote unquote.
Thank you.
But all right. Well, Joe, thank you again, and we'll see you later. And everybody, thank y'all for watching, and have a good day.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.